Welcome to the draft ranking series. It's draft season, so now it's time to talk about who's the best of the best. We move on to the tight ends today, and I'll be honest, they're probably the worst positional group in this class. Despite that, there are definitely tight ends who deserve shoutouts, and there's one guy who I am so high on. If you're new, subscribe to the channel as I'm doing every single positional group. But for now, I'm Chase Keller, and welcome to the top 10 tight ends in the 2024 NFL Draft. Enjoy. I'm going to be completely honest, this class is not good enough for an honorable mention, but I'll still give shoutouts to the 3 tight ends who did not make this list, but they still received draftable grades. Iowa's Eric All, Washington's Jack Westover, and Michigan's A.J. Barner. And just a heads up, I was not satisfied with Colorado State's Dallin Holker, and he actually received a UDFA grade, so he will not be making this list. But with that being said, let's get into the top 10 list. The 10th best tight end in this class cracks the only D+ grade of any tight end, and I'm talking about Illinois' Tip Reiman. He has so much upside to be a dual threat, but for now, I only see him as a role-specific guy. By the way, all 22 film came out after I watched these guys and gave them their grades, so I do apologize if the film is a little choppy. Anyways, Reiman adds a lot of value as a 6th offensive lineman on the field. At 6'5", 271 pounds, he provides great play strength that absolutely shows in his blocking ability. He can block both the pass and the run at efficient rates, and it's primarily due to his great initial burst off the line and his leg drive to sustain the block. He is also very solid at picking up blitzes. On the receiving end of things, Reiman dropped only 2 passes in his 2 productive seasons, with 54 targets in total. Along with that, he works best in space when running routes. So Reiman absolutely has the traits to be that dual threat tight end, but as of now, it's just pure upside. This is because the receiving end of things need more work. He was one of the most athletic tight ends at the combine, but he for some reason runs through his routes really slow. When facing man coverage, he doesn't have the preciseness in his routes to separate consistently. Speaking of that, his route tree is already fairly small. There are even blocking concerns with Reiman, which comes when he blocks upfield as he struggles to take on good angles. That's why I noted him as a 6th offensive lineman. Reiman gives teams a high upside tight end who can absolutely succeed in the right system. As previously mentioned, he gets a D+ grade. This translates to a mid 6th round nod and a 57 overall. Moving on to number 9. There are 13 draftable tight ends in consensus, and I also have 13 draftable tight ends. Yet, both Washington tight ends aren't projected to be drafted, and I think they both should be. I already talked about Jack Westover as an honorable mention, so now I gotta talk about Devin Culp. I believe both of those tight ends should be drafted because they both have a good amount of talent, and Culp is the better of the 2. As the combine revealed about him, Culp is an explosive athlete with great receiving abilities. He's a good route runner for the tight end position, and his cuts are some of the most crisp you will find in this class. Along with the route running abilities, he has vertical upside in the NFL with the explosiveness and the deep speed that was on showcase when watching film. Finally, he is versatile in his alignments with at least 10% total snaps out wide in the slot and most of them being in line. So Culp is a pure receiving tight end, and you can assume that his blocking abilities are mediocre. Yeah, they are. He's got mediocre play strength all around, whether that be in his blocks or even in his routes. When it comes to those same blocks, he can be a bit unaware of what's unfolding behind him, and he struggles to pick up blitzes. He just wants to hit someone. But there's more than the blocking aspect. He also dropped 10 balls on only 74 targets in 2021 and 2022. It did improve last year though, where he only dropped 1 pass on 23 targets. Add this onto the fact that he's only 6'3", 231 pounds, and you have yourself a risky selection. I love Culp and his receiving abilities, and I think he has a lot of upside in the right system. He just won't play every snap. He gets a C- grade, that being a mid-5th round nod and a 61 overall. I do see a lot of Jonnu Smith in his game. At the number 8 slot, I have a guy who, I won't lie, I gave into raising his grade after watching his combine performance. I'm talking about Penn State tight end Theo Johnson. Some traits that I hated on tape, he for some reason proved me wrong for at the combine, so let's talk about it. And for that reason, I do want to start with the negatives. From what I saw on film, this guy is a slower route runner who doesn't impact with athleticism in the open field either. So how did this guy run a 4.57 again? Anywho, he also struggles to break missed tackles, with only 7 of those on 76 career touches. For that reason, he doesn't add much as a yak threat. Alongside these receiving traits, he also has an inconsistent blocking technique, specifically with his hands, and he isn't able to make an impact more than 15 yards downfield. So Johnson seems very concerning with these negatives, but maybe he's just deceiving me. The positives, though, are pretty helpful for his stock. He's your prototypical tight end at 6'6", 260 pounds. In the receiving game, he doesn't add much, but he does run solid routes when given the space to do so. He has the alignment versatility to line up inline and in the slot, and he gives teams great red zone value with his 12 career receiving touchdowns. Even as a blocker, he has had some very good play strength to impact the run game and possibly the pass game, but he only has 122 career pass block snaps. So Johnson's grade did improve a little bit, and he was originally going to be my tight end 9. He has proved me wrong. He does have the same exact grade as Devin Culp, a C-, 61 overall player, and a mid-5th round tag. We stay in the Big Ten as we move down the list. And at number 7, I have Minnesota tight end Brevin Spann-Ford. This dude is a physical freak, and he will absolutely be sought out as a role-specific yet fun tight end. He did measure smaller at the combine than he was listed, but he is still 6'7", 260 pounds. When it comes to what role he will play in the league, I see him as a 6th offensive lineman, as his play strength is absolutely ridiculous. The leg drive he provides is phenomenal, and his consistent technique should make him a reliable blocker. Alongside this, he's surprisingly fast and shifty for his size, and he shows that in his routes. And because of his size and longer arms, he has a very large catch radius. So Spann-Ford has the blocking traits to be reliable, and while he does have some receiving traits, he does have a lot of inconsistencies. The inconsistencies start with the drops. He dropped 9 passes on a ridiculous 46 targets in 2023, a rate of 1 drop every 5.1 targets. He also has inconsistencies in his routes, where some routes will look impressive and others he can't get off the defender whatsoever. But there's one thing that is consistent. He can only really impact within 15 to 20 yards, and he struggles to separate vertically. So Spann-Ford provides the blocking traits that will automatically draw teams in, but the receiving traits are fairly inconsistent. He receives a C- grade just like the last 2 guys, but he's a 62 overall instead, and that is an early 5th round nod. You know what? Let's stay in the Big Ten for the final Big Ten prospect of this entire video. I'm obviously talking about Ohio State's Cade Stover. Stover intrigues me a lot for sure. I just want to see a more well-rounded skill set when he goes into the league. Stover has the dual threat ability to impact on all 3 downs. As a receiver, he's an explosive athlete with great route running out of zone coverage looks. He moves very well laterally, especially for his 6'4", 247-pound frame. Along with that, he has reliable hands with his 2 career drops on 108 targets. As a blocker, he gets off the line fast and provides a very good initial strike for everyone. He also does a very nice job at getting to the second level of defenders to make efficient upfield blocks. So Stover clearly has the desired skill set for an NFL tight end, but I wanted to see more on film, and here's what I mean. Stover might be too scheme specific for the NFL, as he is best used as a check and release guy in the receiving game. He's also not great at sustaining blocks, and his play strength is primarily just an initial strike. Along with that, his deep speed is nothing to adore, and he won't be a vertical threat. But the most concerning negative for me is that his route running and man coverage could use a lot more polish. I am a little scared for how scheme specific Cade Stover will be, but his appealing skill set of receiving and blocking traits will still bring teams in. Stover gets a C grade, which translates to a mid-4th round nod and a 64 overall. Entering the top 5, I have the only ACC tight end on this list, and probably the only ACC tight end on anyone's list, Florida State's Jaheim Bell. He's a very intriguing tight end prospect in my eyes, and I gave him a lot of positives and a lot of negatives, so I apologize if this takes a while. Bell's combination of athletic and physical traits is what lures me in. He's not only an explosive athlete who utilizes his speed and shiftiness very well, but he's able to make catches through contact and make some good initial contact for his blocks, specifically pull blocks. He's an appealing receiver who can get open in many ways, and he can work as a screen tight end in the open field. He's versatile in his alignments. His release package is very creative and he's shifty out of it, and overall, Bell provides some of the best upside in this tight end class. Then when it comes to his negatives, there's also a pretty big variety of things that we should be concerned over. Having both a lot of positives and a lot of negatives does bring up a concern in itself. First off, he's a smaller tight end at 6'2", 241 pounds. This shows some physical concerns, and yeah, he doesn't add much as an overall blocker. He too often blocks the wrong person and lets blitzes get by, and he makes minimal impact when striking a rusher before going into his route. In the receiving game, he does have 6 drops in the last 2 seasons on just 80 targets. He has some okay spatial awareness in zone coverages, and despite having a great release package, some of his releases can run on for too long. With all of this being said, I do have questions on where he will fit in the NFL. Setting concerns aside, Bell is a legitimate tight end prospect. Setting the positives aside, and he wouldn't even make this top 10 list. Bell brings us up to the C+ level of things, as he is an early 4th round nod and a 65 overall. Despite his fit, I do compare him to Irv Smith Jr. Moving into the top 4, we have a long stretch of Big 12 tight ends, and this kicks off with Kansas State's Ben Sinnott. Sinnott is a former fullback who made a very clean transition over to tight end, and now he's one of the top tight ends. My favorite trait about Sinnott is his contact balance, which will immediately be among the best in the league. He broke 21 tackles on 79 touches over the last 2 years, and he refuses to go down easily. In terms of his play strength, it is absolutely phenomenal, and it shows in his blocking with his leg drive. In terms of his receiving abilities, he is a great route runner in space. Because of his ability to make an impact in the air and as a blocker, he can very much line up as a fullback. Sinnott's alignment versatility and his ability to impact in several ways is going to bring teams in. But Sinnott does have some concerns, and some of them are pretty major. First off, Sinnott struggles to separate athletically, and his lateral ability is fairly mediocre. He's not the most explosive athlete, and his straight line speed is neutral altogether. His catch radius is also mediocre, and this provides a lot of questions on how he will translate in the receiving game. To add on to that, he plays compact too much. Finally, he is an inconsistent upfield blocker and needs to work on taking better angles. Sinnott is very appealing in my eyes, and I do think that he will find a role very quickly in the NFL. He's Kyle Juszczyk if he played tight end. In terms of his grade, he is also a C+ like Bell, but he elevates up to a 66 overall and a late 3rd round nod. Alright, Last year, I was really high on Cincinnati's Leonard Taylor and ended up being disappointed. I'm ready to be disappointed again. That's because I have a big tight end sleeper yet again, and this is TCU's Jared Wiley, who is my tight end 3. Wiley does have a normal tight end build at 6'6", 249 pounds, but his play style is far from normal. Wiley is a very good route runner with nice spatial awareness and good lateral ability for his size. He's a nightmare in the yak game, which is crazy considering that he is a tight end. He's also an explosive athlete who provides great overall athleticism and very good speed for the position. Finally, his ability to separate is great, and he should receive a few open targets a game at the next level. So Wiley provides so many great traits as a receiver, but I haven't mentioned anything about his blocking. Why is that? It's obviously because he's not the best blocker, but it's less his play strength and more his bad blocking technique, as just like Sinnott, he plays too compact and can get off balance easily. In terms of that play strength though, it's a neutral point, but he can't use it well enough to break tackles as he forced only 5 of those on 90 touches. He also can drift a little bit on route breaks, and I just overall wanted to see his play strength utilized more so I can have a point on it. Wiley is super underrated in my eyes. He has a great combination of IQ and athleticism to be a great receiving threat. He receives a B- grade, which is an early 3rd round nod, and a 68 overall. I see Cole Kmet a lot in his game. The top 2 is pretty straightforward, but I do think that it's closer than most people think. But yeah, number 2 is Jatavion Sanders out of Texas. Sanders impacts in many ways, and his negatives are fairly significant, but there's no denying that he will make a huge impact on the field. But let's get this out of the way. He is a pure receiving tight end. He's a super explosive athlete with great lateral ability and spatial awareness to get open in several ways. His release package is very good, he can run nice routes through traffic, and overall his route running is probably the 2nd best in this class to the number 1 guy. He also has a wide catch radius at the top of his routes. He's got appealing yak ability due to his lateral elusiveness, and his alignment versatility is present. Even in the blocking game, he is able to make quick pull blocks and put together very good angles. But that's where the fun ends when talking about his blocking ability. As I said before, he's probably a pure receiving tight end in the NFL. He brings a scheme-specific tight end to franchises because of his blocking ability. He has okay play strength but primarily bad blocking technique, which is present on every kind of block. He does not add much value as that inline blocker that some teams want to draft. Along with that, he has okay play strength, and that continues in his inability to break tackles at efficient rates and his ability to physically separate from DBs. So Sanders is a pure receiving tight end, but he's a damn good one. Sanders gets an A- grade with an early 2nd round nod and a 73 overall. And now that I think about it, I don't think this tight end class is the worst class in the draft. And finally, the number 1 tight end in the 2024 NFL draft is fairly easily Georgia tight end Brock Bowers. The potential generational talent comes into the draft with extremely high expectations, and I think he will live up to those. I already made a full video on Brock Bowers in my detailed scouting report series, so if you want more information on Bowers, go ahead and watch that video. Positively, Bowers is ridiculously athletic for the tight end position. He has the deep speed, the top-notch explosiveness, the shiftiness as an open runner, and the lateral ability as a route runner to give some teams a mismatch, especially teams that run a 3-4 or 4-3. Because of his great athleticism, his alignment versatility is great. He even has some solid blocking traits, as he provides good play strength and technique as an inline and pull blocker. Negatively, he is a smaller tight end at 6'3", 243 pounds. He does struggle to create separation when running inline routes, and even some of these routes, both inline and honestly everywhere else, can be a little lousy. Other than that, there isn't much else to say about his weaknesses. So yeah, Bowers absolutely has the upside to be one of the greatest tight ends to ever play football. He is a first round grade with a 77 overall, and he is likely to be my number 4 overall player on my big board. He doesn't even have an NFL comparison. His pro comparison will eventually be himself. So, those are my top 10 tight ends in the 2024 NFL Draft. Do you agree with my list? What is your top 10? Let me know in the comments section below. Wait, are you not subscribed yet? Well, do it now. I release content like this all the time and would really appreciate your support. I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and I will see you all next time.